The night was colder than it should have been. The wind whispered across the barren land, carrying the faint cries of coyotes, and something else, a small sound like a sob muffled in the dark. Rancher Luke Grayson reined in his horse. When he heard it, he'd been heading back from town, the moon guiding his way through the wild plains. But that sound, it wasn't no coyote, it was human. He climbed off his horse, boots crunching the dry grass, and followed the sound toward the glow of a dying campfire. That's when he saw her, a little girl, couldn't be older than 8, sitting beside a lifeless woman wrapped in a torn shawl. Her face was streaked with dirt and tears, her eyes red and swollen, but she didn't move. Not even when Luke stepped closer. She just sat there, clutching the woman's hand. Go away, she whispered. Her voice was small but steady, like someone who'd run out of tears. Luke knelt beside her. Easy, sweetheart, I ain't gonna hurt you. What happened here? She got sick, the girl said. Not looking up, Mama got sick. I tried to get her water, but she stopped breathing this morning. I been guarding her so animals don't come. Luke's throat tightened. The child's voice cracked on the word mama. He took off his hat, lowering his gaze in respect. The prairie wind carried silence between them. Finally, he spoke, soft but firm. You can't stay out here, kid. You'll freeze by morning. I can't leave her, she said quickly. She said never to leave her side. Luke exhaled, his chest heavy. She wouldn't want you to die out here too. For a moment, the girl didn't move. Then she turned to him, eyes glimmering with fear and loss, and said, who are you? Name's Luke Grayson. He said, got a ranch about a day's ride from here. I'm taking you with me. You're coming, kid. The girl hesitated, staring at her mother's still face. Then slowly, she let go of her mother's hand. Luke lifted her gently onto his horse, wrapped her in his coat, and rode off under the moonlight, leaving behind a lonely patch of land where love had ended and fate had begun. The girl didn't speak much for days. Luke learned her name was Annie, and that her mother had been traveling west, searching for work after her husband died in a mine collapse. They'd been turned away from one town after another, until sickness took her mother down. Annie had tried to care for her, but she was just a child on the ranch. Things were quiet. Luke lived alone, had been, since his wife and baby died 3 winters ago. He didn't talk about it, and he didn't let people close, but the sight of Annie sitting by the fire, her little hands gripping the mug of hot milk he'd given her, stirred something deep inside him. She reminded him of the daughter he never got to raise. Still, she didn't smile. She did chores without complaint, fed the hens, swept the porch, and stayed silent. Nights were the hardest. Sometimes Luke heard her crying softly in the bunkhouse. Other times, she'd sneak out to sit under the stars, clutching a small locket around her neck. Inside, there was a faded picture of her mother. One morning, Luke found her outside, shivering as she tried to milk a cow that wouldn't stand still. He watched a moment, then stepped forward. You don't have to do all this, Annie, he said gently. She looked up, stubborn tears in her eyes. I have to earn my keep. You said work for food. Luke sighed. That ain't what I meant. You don't owe me nothing. You're safe here. That's what matters. Her lip trembled. Safe doesn't mean home. Those words cut deep. Luke had built his whole life around fences and empty rooms. Safe, yes, but hollow for the first time. He wondered what home really meant anymore. Weeks turned into months. The snow melted. Annie started laughing again. Just a little. She helped Luke's old ranch hand, Chester, with the horses. She'd hum while brushing their manes, and sometimes Luke would find her talking to them like they were people. But the peace didn't last long. One afternoon, while Luke was in town buying feed, a group of drifters came riding through. They'd heard about the lonely rancher with a girl he found on the road. One of them, a rough man with a scar down his cheek, claimed the girl might be his cousin's lost child. When Luke returned, he found the men waiting at his gate. She ain't yours to keep, mister, the scarred man said. Best hand her over. Luke stood tall, eyes cold as steel. She's not a stray pup. You can claim she's got a name, and she's staying here till I know who you really are. The man grinned. You're mighty protective for someone who ain't her kin. Maybe I ain't blood, Luke said, hand resting near his holster, but I'm the one feeding her, protecting her, and making sure she don't sleep scared anymore. That makes me more kin than any liar riding through these parts. The standoff lasted long enough for the wind to shift. Finally, the drifters backed off, muttering curses as they rode away. That night, Annie came to him, trembling. They won't come back. Will they? Luke knelt, meeting her eyes. Not while I'm breathing. She stared at him a long moment, then whispered, you sound like my papa. Luke's chest tightened. You miss him? She nodded. But sometimes when you talk, I feel like I still got one. He couldn't speak for a while. Finally, he said softly, then I'll do my best to be one. Summer came, and with it, healing. Annie smiled more often. helping Luke mend fences and plant new crops. She grew stronger, braver. One evening, while the sun sank behind the hills, she ran to Luke holding a small flower. "This one's for Mama," she said, placing it near the fence line. "But I think she'd be happy I found another family." Luke swallowed hard. "I think she would too." As the light faded, Annie looked up at him. "Can I call you Pa?" The word hit him like a sunrise after years of dark. His voice broke when he answered, "You sure can, kid." And right then, with the prairie wind carrying the scent of wildflowers and the stars waking up one by one, Luke realized something. The little orphan he'd found guarding her mother's body had done the impossible. She'd brought life back to a broken man's world. Because sometimes family isn't the one you're born into, it's the one that finds you when you're lost, takes your hand and says softly, "You're coming with me, kid."